In this core class, we will be doing some mobility movement as well, and I'm going to use a yoga block and a stretchy band. You could use a pillow or a ball, and you could also use a strap of any kind, even a belt or a sash or a tie. Okay, so I'm just going to get started. And it doesn't matter the length of your stretchy band, really. I'm using one that's shorter than sometimes I'm used to, but it's going to be fine because I can sort of pull on it and make it a little wider so I can go up and over my head. My goal is to not be changing the shape of my body as I do this. So that means, I'll show you from the side, I don't want to be doing any of those kinds of movements with my head, my rib cage, or my low back. I'm really just trying to move my arms in the socket, right up there at the shoulder. Good. Just a little bit more, trying to get warm arms. And to continue warming up a little bit, we are going to do controlled articular rotations, a fancy name for saying that we're going to rotate a bone in its joint. So when I do this at the arm level, I don't want to be moving my rib cage. I really only want to be moving my arm in the socket. As I go backwards, my pinky leads and then I turn my hand. So my pinky leads and then I need to turn the hand. It's not going to happen without turning the hand. So just 3 times in each direction. I'm holding on to my rib cage because I know it's a cheat that my body loves to do. So I'm not going to let that happen. So my arm will just go as wide as it needs to go to complete this circle-ish movement. Good. And then we're just going to think about our wrists and how they can do circles as well. They don't look as good, but we're just going in both directions. And I'm doing one at a time because it's so easy to want to turn your wrist. And you can see my wrist is kind of torquing and wanting to do the movement. So I'm also pinning my elbow this time, so that I can really try to isolate the wrist. And of course, it's not happening purely. I am getting a little movement in my wrist, but that was pretty good. I'm going to push and point my fingers down. Push my palms towards you and point my fingers down. Push my palms towards you and then fingers down. Then I'm going to, sorry, a little hair in my mouth. I'm going to hold onto the wall because this isn't a balance idea. I'm going to move my leg in the socket. So I take my leg out to the side and then I'm going to tip into internal rotation, bring my leg around and come forward again. So I take it out to the side. This is where I want to cheat. I don't have a lot of good connection there for my internal rotation, so I have to take my time, hold on to my hip, and get that internal rotation going. Much easier for me to come this direction. Just recognize that when you go behind you, we aren't tipping, we're just doing the little amount that we have available to us. Hip extension is not huge, so it's not a ton of movement there. Ooh. Always my little challenge, finding that internal rotation. And out and around. There we go. Okay, so I think we're just about ready. We're going to come down to the floor. Let's go down in a safe way. You can always hold on to a wall or a chair or a couch, whatever you've got nearby. And I'm going to come down to the floor and we're going to work with our pelvis just a teeny bit. And then our legs. So when you're on the floor like this and you're going to work with your pelvis, if you find your ribs are kind of high up off the floor, a good way to get them down is to put a little pillow or towel under your head. Sometimes it needs to be under your shoulders to really help you get those ribs down, but I'm not looking for you to get every little bit of your ribs down, just gently trying to have them touch the floor. So, first thing we're going to do is bring our pubic bone towards our nose. So you can see that if I had a marble here, it would have traveled down towards my belly button. And then I'm going to go the other direction, taking my pubic bone down towards the floor in between my legs. But I'm not changing my ribs. I'm doing all of this down below at my pelvis. And I want to not be pushing and driving this from my feet. I want to use my hip and bottom muscles to try to make this happen. And next thing we're going to do is raise the right hip. Maybe sometimes you have to think of it as pushing into the right heel a little bit or squeezing the right glute so that the right hip is now higher than the left hip. Bring it back down, left hip higher than the right hip. I'm not crunching here, so I'm not doing that. I am lifting and lifting. So I'm just feeling that difference. And yes, my knee does go forward a little bit when I lift, but I'm not driving it from there. Great. And speaking of knees, let's take the right knee forward and just notice what happens in your pelvis. And then the left knee forward. So try to keep your ribs quiet and you're just moving your pelvis. This is actually very much like how the pelvis moves when you walk. So it's a really nice patterning exercise. And notice if one happens more easily than the other, oftentimes this tells us a little bit about our preferred pattern of movement. We oftentimes have a walking pattern that's not exactly symmetrical. Not a big deal, just how we are. Okay. We're going to make our legs just a little bit wider than they were, and we're going to do something similar to windshield wipers, which many of you are probably familiar with as kind of a stretchy, floppy exercise. We're going to do it as a core exercise, which means we are going to take the right and the left leg towards the right, but we're doing it with muscle power and we're not flopping into it. And then we're really going to use our core and an exhale where we imagine a marble traveling up from our pubic bone behind our belly button to bring the core back that brings the legs back. So we move to the left. We don't go as far as we can go. Use that core to bring you back. And to the right. Can you make this a core exercise? I know your legs aren't super heavy in this position because your feet are on the ground, but can you make this a more core-oriented exercise? So I'm helping you warm up your core here because we are going to make this more difficult. So now that we're ready to make it more difficult, if you can, what you're going to do is come over just a little bit, and then you're going to think, can I lift this bottom leg? If this is the top, because this hip is up, this is the bottom, this hip is down, I'm going to lift that leg and use a lot more core to come back and put that leg down. So I go to my left, use that exhale before I lift the leg and use my core to come back. So we go to the right. Isn't it much easier if you start to exhale before you move? Lift, having exhaled right before you lift. I'm talking and talking is an exhale, so it's actually happening for me. And the left. Fantastic. We are going to come up and get on our hands and knees. If hands and knees is not something you do, then you'll put your hands on a couch or a bench or a chair, anything that's secure and isn't going to slip away from you. So here we go. We are on our hands and knees and we're going to practice a little bit of bird dog. Many of you know bird dog. When you lift your right arm and your left leg, but I'm just sliding them out for right now because I want you to get used to the fact that we're not going to slide our hip to the side. We're really working on keeping our core strong in the middle and our body right in the middle. So now we're going to get ready to actually lift. We're going to flex the foot and make a fist with the hand, tall out of the hand and the leg that are on the ground, reaching with the other appendages. And I don't care how high you lift that leg, I just want you to be strong. Continue to breathe. Use your exhale. Feel your deep abdominals contracting with that exhale. And come back in. And now we'll do the other side. You extend, flex, make a fist. Reach, reach, reach. Tall, right in the center, really staying in line in the center. And I'll show you from this angle. So my leg might not reach all the way. That's okay. What I want you to see is I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. So you have your leg extended and you're counting. And generally my idea is to count to 10. So again, sorry that my leg isn't all the way extended, but this gives you the idea of what we're doing, keeping your ribs in your body. Beautiful work. And we're going to come back down. And now we do it one last time. I'm really tall and strong and totally in control, ribs in my body, head in neutral. Reaching, reaching, reaching. And coming back down. And then one more time. Reach, reach, reach. Fantastic. Okay. We're coming back down onto the ground. We'll just go back and forth a little bit. It's a really good way to give your wrists a little rest. So we're going to take this block, put our bum up on top of it. Now, if a block is too hard for you, it's fine. Find a really firm pillow. That'll work too. If you have a ball that you want to use, that's going to be less stable, so harder work, but it's still a great way to go. So here we are. That's really the advanced way to go. Maybe in another video. So what we're going to do, we've got both of our legs up. If you need to have them a little closer to you to reduce the tension in your hip flexors, that's fine, but let's not bring them all the way in. Let's not tuck our tail. Okay, so here we are. We want our ribs in our body. I've got my hands on my hips because I don't want to move my hips. What I want to do is just take my right knee out to the side and notice that an exhale will help me control and keep my hips evenly on that block. And then another exhale to bring that leg back in. So now my left leg goes out to the side, keeping that right hip just the same as it was when I started. And bring it back in. So we move out to the side, using that exhale. Now for a lot of us, we're going to use the exhale to go out and take a breath of air, and then an exhale to come in. Because in both cases, we do need to stabilize our core. And an exhale is a great way to gather that reflexive core and really work with it, drawing those deep abdominals into a really beneficial, supportive core contraction. If you're very, very mobile in your hips, I'm not asking you to open your legs super wide. I'm asking you to actually use muscle contractions to really keep a hold of it, keep control of it. And lift your hips, put the block to the side, and we're going to turn again to come up. So once you're up, we're going to get on our hands and knees to do a knees lifted quadruped. It's kind of a plank-ish move. If you're not going to be on your hands and knees, the knees lifted quadruped won't make any sense to you at the couch, and I would suggest using the couch to do a plank, or even your countertop if you'd like something harder, or even the wall. So we're going to, if you're on the floor, we're going to progressively work on plank, and we start here. Elbow pits facing forward, so your shoulders or your arms at your shoulder blade, they're externally rotated. Push through those palms so you're not collapsed here. And then with an exhale, float those knees. And that is core work. Breathe, inhale and exhale, and come on down. Take a nice inhale, exhale, come up and hold, and you don't have to hold your breath, please don't. Continue to breathe. You've got the contraction, you've got the support, just continue to breathe. And come on down, and we're going to do another one. Excellent. There you go, and come on down. Well, now for a fun part. We're going to take this strap. I think I'll show you from this side, and then I'll show you from the front. We're going to stretch our thighs a little bit. If you are not kneeling on the ground, I'll show you a standing thigh stretch. But the beauty of this one is you're using your core. We're going to support the back of our bra with this strap. We're going to punch out in front of us, and then we're going to hinge backwards. So my plank is now sort of upside down, but I am not going to change my spine. I am using everything I've got in my core to support this neutral spine. And one more. So we're stretching the thighs for sure, but we're squeezing our glutes and using our core and getting some really nice strength work there. If that was not available for you, what you would do instead, put this around your ankle, not your foot, because what I really want to do in stretching my thigh is not stretch the top of my foot. That's not what I'm doing here. So I'm trying to have my thighs side by side, so my knees sort of in the same area, and do a little stretch. And then you'll do it on the other side. Might as well do it so that if you were merely watching while we were doing the thigh stretch, you have an opportunity to do your thigh stretch now. And there we go. Excellent. Okay, shake your legs out for a second. And we're going to come back down and do a half plank. I'm just going to face another direction. Why not? You can put a blanket under your knees if you need. A lot of people have sensitive knees. No shame in that. This is pretty simple. So I've got my head in neutral, meaning I'm not here. Almost like double chinning it. My elbows are pointing forward. So I'm not here like a bulldog. I'm here. Tuck my tail a little bit if I need to, because I don't want to be slumping. I want my ribs in my body. And you can come back and forth, or you can hold. Coming back and forth, we're not going into a child's pose and tucking our tail, but we can give our wrists a break. And then come back again. And break. And plank again. Beautiful. So we are going to do a lunge. I'm going to face you just so you have a better view of what I'm going to do with my arms. So my lunge is my right leg forward on this run. If you needed to grab your leg and bring it forward, that works too. You can do it from quadruped, where you grab your leg and bring it forward. It's whatever works for you. So we plug in this leg. So we're not here, we just plug in the leg. I'm not trying to force my hips to both be facing forward, just plugging in the leg, and then I get what is natural for my body. And from here, we are going to raise this arm, really stretching right here. And then we will do some mobility work with this arm, but what I'm going to show you is that you can do this standing up as well. And you can do it seated on a stool or a bench or a chair without arms. So there are lots of ways to do this. And then we're going to move that arm again. Try not to move your pelvis. And if this is too much, then stick with this stretch, stretch, stretch. Tuck the tail some more and really feel that stretch right there. Otherwise, you can add a little bit of arm movement in both directions. It's pretty challenging to your balance. Good. And then we'll switch sides. So you can be down low or up high, whichever one works best for you. You can be on a bench. Tuck that tail, plug in this femur. Sorry about that ding. And you know it's going to ding another time because I didn't turn it off. My bad. And we go again. Beautiful. And we're going to now get ready to go down to a plank. So stand at the back of your mat, and then I'm going to choose going down to my plank through a lunge. You could do a modified sun salutation if you so choose, but even there, what I'm going to find myself doing in order to keep my spine in neutral is come down through a lunge. To my hands and knees, and then I'll walk forward a little bit so I can stay on camera, not hit the wall. So once again, my elbow pits are facing forward. You can play around while you hold for about 10 seconds with changing the load on your wrists if they're starting to get tired. This is a great way to just make the load a little bit more variable. We come back, a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of a decrease in load. You can even tap your fingers. And then we come back again and up in your plank. You can even move your legs if you want. Just something to keep you busy and interested while you're waiting for your 10 seconds. And come back down. Maybe you tap your fingers again. And up you go. And here we go, we're just about done. Walking our way back. Just sprinkle out those wrists. I'm going to bring one leg forward so that I can come up. And we're going to do some squats, and we're going to add arm rotations. We're just looking at more arm mobility as we do this core work. So I'm going to get a really nice wide squat, oftentimes called a goddess squat. I'm not going to tuck my tail like so. This is a teeny weeny bit of a hip hinge, it really is. My tailbone is not sticking way out. But you can see that I'm not completely upright. There's just a little tiny, tiny movement. And that's just freedom for me and my hips. Everybody is different. Do what feels comfortable to you. Let's just not tuck our tail. Let's reach our arms out and then just internally and externally rotate. It begins with you turning your palms up and down. And then you can start looking, move your elbow pits. And let your palms just come along for the ride. And then start looking right at the shoulder and do all your turning from there. Keep your ribs in your body. Yeah. Great. And come back up. Shake it out for a second, and we're going to go back down and do another arm situation. we're going to bring our hands down and bring them up. So it's another internal and external rotation. Good. Almost done. Excellent. Walking my feet back in. We are going to hip hinge over, softish knees, and come back up. So I'm hip hinging over. Even though my arms are looking fancy, I'm just simply unhinging. Hinging over, and I could do it this way as well. I could make little fists and pretend I'm lifting a weight and coming straight up. Either one works. Now we're going to go back down to the ground. This will be the end. Always my own peculiar way of going down, but it's very helpful. We're going to use the block, and we're going to bridge. So heels are beneath your bum, beneath your sitting bones. We don't want anything under our head for this one. And we bridge up, and we come back down. So we're doing it as one piece. The distance between our hips and our ribs doesn't change. Just one piece, squeeze the block, and go back down. So that's your fourth one, and fifth one, and 6, and 7, and 8. Now for some fun, if you're ready for it, we're going to come up, and this is going to turn into a single leg bridge. Squeeze that block and just straighten out one knee. And come back in. Squeeze the block and straighten out the other knee. That's a lot of work. Hopefully your buns stay in the same place. You can measure them with your fist. If this is not something you enjoy, if you're dumping into your low back, tuck your tail a little bit more, or come down and up with both legs. Go back to what we started out doing. And coming on down. Just wiggle a little bit, any direction you want. This is when you can do your floppy windshield wipers. And then let's put our knees together and our feet out wide. Let the back of your pelvis get nice and wide. Inhale, and on your exhale, just let everything settle into the ground. If you're comfortable here, stay like this. If you'd prefer to lengthen out your legs, that's a good choice too. I apologize for the interruption. Let's close our eyes, and I hope you can take a moment to pause and reflect on how much your cells are moving, your body is feeling energetic and ready to go.